Hey folks, I'm Sarah and I'm on the 2025 jury for what I think is the best book prize for literary fiction from small presses. It's called the Republic of Consciousness Prize, United States and Canada, and it is dedicated to literary fiction from small presses in North America. Over the next few months, I will be sharing every single book nominated for the prize, and while I can't share my personal opinions on each book just yet, I will share enough details so that you can get to know the book and the publisher. Every book gets its very own video, and you are not going to want to miss a single one. And last but certainly not least is book number 45, Mother River by Can Xue, translated by Karen Gernant Chen Zeping and published by Open Letter Books. This collection includes 13 stories. That's 13 stories that are all surreal, complex, perplexing, nuanced, rich, vivid, and very disorienting. There's a woman who falls in love with a lion. There's a young man who decides to become a fisherman or kind of takes over the fishing spot of an acquaintance and doesn't catch any fish, but that's okay. Still, he is a successful fisherman. There's a story about a village where stones are growing everywhere. There's a story about a city that is filled with smog. There are stories that are set on the edges of marshes. There's 3 stories set in the same kind of tropical city, mostly featuring characters who have moved to this city and are trying to figure out its mysterious, insect-filled, ladies of the night filled ways. There's a lot of young people who are learning things from elders, a lot of what feel like coming of age stories. But there's a lot in here that's very befuddling. The only word I can think of is that it's a befuddling experience. So there are characters who will be walking along and suddenly find themselves somewhere else. Like it could just be like 3 blocks down the road, but they're suddenly not where they expected to be. And then there are also moments where a character is walking along and suddenly next to them is their neighbor walking with them who kind of appears out of nowhere. And everyone is okay with this. There's not too much surprise that seems to happen when these kind of events happen. Whereas if this happened to me, I would assume I was having a stroke and I would go to the hospital. These characters, it kind of just work. It's like dream logic. These things happen, things appear, things disappear, and they kind of just go with the flow. The Kirkus Review calls this warmly delivered, and I would have to agree. Despite the befuddlement, there is a warmth and a tenderness that is just kind of underlying all of these stories. Even though it's a strange world, there's a warmth to it. In the midst of what also feels very grand and abstract, there's still this level of warmth. And Can Xue is actually the pseudonym for a Chinese writer who was born in 1953 and is described as a perennial favorite to win the Nobel Prize. She is also the author of books titled Vertical Motion, Frontier, Barefoot Doctor, and 5 Spice Street, among other books. And Open Letter is one of only a few publishing houses that are completely dedicated to increasing access to world literature for English readers. They publish, as I say, 10 titles in translation each year and run an online literary website called 3%. They search for works that are extraordinary and influential, works that we hope will become classics of tomorrow. I've been ending these videos on every nominated book with some sort of topic or subject that came to mind as I was reading that specific book, but that could be applied to lots of different types of fiction in general. And so today I'm gonna kind of do that, but I'm actually gonna give away something that I've been saving for a rainy day. And it is a very rainy day, dark, dreary, rainy day here in Chicago. So I'm gonna give away this topic that I've been saving for a rainy day. It's something that I've been thinking about, and I think I'll do a longer video about it in the future, but I think it really applies to Mother River, and so I thought I'd mention it today. The Kirkus Review called Mother River a mind-bending book. So when I saw that, I recalled a conversation that I had with my husband the other day about the kinds of books I tend to read and how weird they tend to be. And I used the word mind-bending because I couldn't really think of another term to describe the bizarre, surreal, weird, offbeat fiction that I'm sometimes drawn to. So I use that word mind-bending to describe the kind of fiction that does something to your brain. It feels like it bends your mind in ways that you aren't used to. It flexes that muscle in new directions. But I felt like it wasn't quite the perfect term as I was using it. So then, that as conversations do, we veered off to another topic, and we actually started talking about psychedelics, which is a topic that my husband brings up a lot because it's something that he is intellectually interested in. From an intellectual point of view, he's interested in kind of the research that's being done into psychedelics and how they can affect your brain when it comes to treating anxiety and depression, and even helping people think different about mortality and things like that. And he used the word, at some point in that conversation, he used the word loosening. And we were on a walk, and I stopped him there, like in our tracks, and I said, Eureka, that's it. Mind loosening. It's mind loosening fiction that I'm drawn to. Not mind bending. Mind bending too, maybe, but mind loosening kind of like better described my experience with reading all sorts of different types of fiction, not just surreal fiction, but many types of fiction. It loosens you up. Even just the action of reading different kinds of fiction loosens your brain, I think. And I think the more that you seek out any kind of art that is different and maybe challenges you in a way that maybe you don't understand it fully, or challenges you in other ways, challenges you to think in ways that you're not used to, I think has some sort of loosening effect. It loosens those rigid pathways that we all have, that we all develop as we age, as we go about our daily lives and we kind of interact with the same people and the same media. That it creates this rigidity in our thought ways. And I think reading lots of different types of, not just reading, but encountering art in particular that is new to us, that is different than anything we've seen before, can loosen those rigid pathways. And then I think if you practice that loosening enough, you might just start to see kind of connections in the world around you might not have otherwise seen. You kind of start to see the world in different ways, maybe because those original pathways in your brain have been shaken loose. Again, I want to do a whole video about this like mind loosening idea, but if anything describes this book for me, it is mind loosening. And not just this book. I would say perhaps like all 45 books on this nomination list, like at least like many of the books on this list, I would call mind loosening books. And that is really the kind of fiction I'm drawn to. I would love to know your initial thoughts, as I'm kind of crafting this idea for future videos on this subject. I would love to know your thoughts about my early description of mind loosening fiction. What do you think of that? Can you think of any books that you've read that you think might fit that mind loosening idea? I would love to know your examples in the comments, and this is my example for you. And that's it, folks. That is the list of 45 books nominated for the 2025 Republic of Consciousness Prize for the United States and Canada. It's an incredible list. It is an incredible honor that I was given this opportunity to read this whole list. I am just over the moon about the experience. It's been really, truly wonderful. I hope if you've missed any of the videos, you go back and check them out, because really there are some hidden gems in this list of books from 45 publishers. So I hope you'll check that out. And I do have exciting news that the long list for the 2025 prize will be announced on January 20, 2026. keep a lookout. I'll leave a link for the prizes newsletter below. Also follow us on Instagram. I will very likely share the long list here. I will for sure share the long list here on my channel. So please check that out, January 2026. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. It has been a wild ride. It is continuing. The ride is not over. We are on the ride. We are continuing the ride. But thank you so much for joining me. Again, my name is Sarah, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.